Greetings puppets, FiOth here, and in this video I'll try to break down the usage of every single grindstone, including the more nuanced ones, and rank them according to their usefulness. Some of these are totally overshadowed by other choices, and some retain their usefulness throughout all playthroughs. So, step 1 will be explaining what they do. In some cases we'll demonstrate on these dummies. If more real needs to be shown, I have some real recording that will show you exactly what I mean, and then we will rank them according to what they bring to the table. Let's get to it. At the bottom of the list we have the durability grindstone. This is pretty useless. There is a plethora of equipments and P-organ upgrades that will help you retain durability whilst either attacking or blocking. This stays on for quite a bit of time, but what it ultimately offers is just more durability when you sustain attacks or you chip your weapon on the enemy whilst you are attacking them. It's not very impressive and it gets totally overshadowed by some of the other choices down the line, so there is no good reason for you to sacrifice your grindstone slot if you want to optimize your character. It's one of the most useful consumables in the game, and wasting this on this piece of shit, it's not a good idea. This is by far the worst choice. I suggest you avoid it altogether. Next up we have the Indomitable Grindstone. This is an interesting one. What it does is block all health damage and protect all your regain damage whilst it is active. The only thing that will be consumed when getting attacked is stamina, and I believe that will also be at a reduced rate, although there is no 100% safe way to test this. So you activate this, and instead of getting chip damage through your block, you block 100%. If you have regain active, that regain will not be touched by the enemy's attacks, and then you can counter attack to refill your health bar. This is not bad, but it gets totally overshadowed by an upcoming better choice, so it lands second to last. Next, we have the Satisfaction Grindstone. This is low in my list for one very specific reason. It can be amazing if you use the right weapon and amulets, or it can be kinda meh if you don't. What it does is increase the critical rate, and if the weapon doesn't have any crit, it gives it some crit percentage. So I'm gonna demonstrate here. That was a normal, that was a normal, and that was a crit. 1 out of 3 attacks became a crit, but there is no real quantifiable way of knowing how many you will get. What it will improve dramatically is the effectiveness of weapons that have crit inherently on them, like Proof of Humanity. You will be landing a lot more critical attacks with this thing if you are using this grindstone. So that was an entire combo and I only landed 1 crit. Now I'm gonna use it again, and as you can see, crits fly all over the screen. Very useful, and can be further augmented by using this amulet right here, the Assassin's Amulet. It turns your crits into really strong ones, and I already made a build about this entire thing that you can see coming up on your screens right here. Next up we have the Destruction Grindstone. Like, the word destruction in Lies of P is kinda misused because it feels like they're trying to describe two different things by using the same word. You'll understand what I say when I move on to the elemental ones. But this one is great. It increases the stagger output of your weapon attack. So let's say I want to put this puppet into a stagger state. I attack once, twice, third attack, and now it is ready to be staggered. I will let it recover. Now I will apply my grindstone. I will attack 1, 2 times, and the puppet is ready to be staggered. So although there are no numeric values that we can detract without diamonning this, it's kind of an 1/3 improvement when it comes to how many attacks it will take to stagger an opponent. As you can imagine, enemies with large health pools will be devastated by this, because you will be able to dish out more stagger, get them in a vulnerable state faster and more consistently, And the duration of this is not too bad. It stays on for a good amount of time. Of course, that will depend on your P-organ upgrades and your equipment, but it's overall very consistent and very reliable. If you haven't been using it, give it a spin. Then we move into the elemental tiers. There are 3 tiers, one is the flame, one the electric blitz, and one the acid, and the least utilitarian of them all is the flame grindstone. What it does is improve the flame damage taken by enemies that are already overheating and apply a dot effect. I'm gonna get this puppet ready to be roasted here, and as you can see, it takes dot damage over time. Pretty substantial amount, about 75 to 80 HP per tick. And when it is a flame, of course, it takes more flame damage from my flame attacks. And then you can reapply it if it goes away pretty fast. It is a good one, very effective against whatever's made of flesh, especially monsters and carcasses. So if you're fighting those, this can be a very good choice. It lands last when it comes to the elemental ones because it just damage over time and added damage, whilst the other 2 siblings offer you much stronger side effects. Next one, we have the electric bleach grindstone, and this is great, especially if used against puppets. What it does is apply an electric bleach effect on the enemy that will do a few things. First and foremost, once they're in an electric bleach, they will take more electric bleach damage, that is to be expected. What's also great though is the fact that they will become prone to stagger much faster than if they were not in an electric bleach state. So in case of this puppet, as you probably saw at the beginning of this attack string, it only took 2 attacks to get it in a vulnerable state. Now you might be asking, why use the distraction grindstone if you have access to this? The staggering effect is not as potent, and the distraction grindstone does not require you proc electric bleach before it becomes effective. But here we're also dealing with the fact that they will be taking more electrical damage for the duration of the proc effect. So it kind of be considered a little bit better. That's why it ranks higher than the destruction one, and of course higher than the flame one, because you also get the stagger benefits. At the top of the elemental family, we have the acid grindstone. It does the following thingies. Enemies will take increased acid damage. Enemies will take damage over time due to the acid proc effect. I'm going to demonstrate. Most importantly, if enemies are equipped with weapons, like the Black Rabbit Brotherhood for example, you can perfect block to break their weapons, which is an insane benefit for those 2 fights, because it pretty much trivializes them. On top of everything else, the overall stagger buildup that you cause to enemies is increased exponentially if this is active. So if it would take, let's say, 3 perfect blocks to get an enemy in a staggerable state, having this active will decrease the number of perfectly blocked attacks required. It is more tied to a block heavy approach, but it does what the flame one does to an extent, because it deals damage over time and increased acid damage when under the effect of acid, and gives you an option on how to actually stagger the enemy. Perfect blocking will build more stagger. On top of everything else, and that's why it lands higher than the electric blitz, it can break enemies' weapons. And that is a huge boon if you play, as I said, with a focus on perfect parring. It's also useful on pretty much everything except maybe for carcasses and monsters, but when it comes to monsters in their purest form, we're only concerned with the swamp monster here. That's the only 100% monster boss that you fight in the game. Everything else will be devastated by this, so it lands second to best. At the top of the list, we have the Perfection Grindstone, and we don't really need to say much about this. Once active, you will be able to block every single attack in the game, no exceptions, as if you perfectly parried them, leading to openings for stagger, and of course, all your P-organ upgrades tied to perfect parrying will take effect whilst this thing is active. So if you have P-organ upgrades that state that you get your regain back when you perfect parry, this will happen when this is active. If you regain weapon durability when perfect parrying, this will happen as intended. Everything will work as if you were actually manually perfect parrying. This can be a godsend if you're fighting bosses like Lexasia, and yeah, I know what you people will say. Well, if you learn how to perfectly parry, this is pretty much redundant. But guys, we're not gonna talk about how someone who has mastered the game 100% will deal with the game here. We're talking about the general populace. If you think that this is not a game changer for people struggling to get things done, then you can take it out of the list and just have acid as the second best, or even distraction if that's more to your liking. For me, I found out that the people that asked me for a way to get past the hardest content of the game, suggesting this grindstone pretty much solved their problem overnight. I rated the best in most consistent of the grindstones, has only one downside, and that is its duration. You can increase it with a couple of choices given to you, but it is best used in a pinch and requires the best possible timing, so you have to optimize your approach to use it effectively. Very, very good, and you should all give it a spin. So, this is it, puppets, my breakdown of every single grindstone and my ranking of them. I took a bit of time because I wanted to have all the information available on point, so I hope this helps you. If it did, sub, like, and hit the bell. I will be covering everything that comes out in Lies of P, including the upcoming confirmed DLC. Until next time, be well, stay frosty, and always strive for perfection. Cheers!